As you might have guessed, fans of other teams on social media are handling the Blake Snell signing really, really well. We'll dig into that, and then we will have the first half of our interview with World Series champion Ben Casparius. Let's do it. Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for being with us every weekday morning and for making us your first listen. And thanks to those of you who are with me live here on Wednesday evening. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you celebrating on Thursday. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now to make it easier to find. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snider. My co-host, Vince Samperio. You'll see Vince a little bit later in this episode. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room over the past decade, so we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And this is an interesting live episode. Only the first few minutes will be live. I am here with you live on Wednesday night right now. In a minute, after I talk about Blake Snell for a few minutes, I'm going to hit play on the first half of the interview Vince and I did with Dodgers pitcher Ben Casparius. Had a lot of fun talking with him. Second half will be tomorrow. Same kind of thing. Vince will do a few minutes beforehand. Not sure if he'll be live or not. And then he will play the second half of that episode, or that interview. So that's what we're going to do. But I'm going to hang out in the chat while the interview is playing. So I'll be in the chat with you guys live for the whole episode, having fun talking Dodgers with you while we watch the conversation with Ben Casparius. Mark, yes, I guess you can call me JJ. That's what my mom calls me. That's what everybody called me as a kid. So sure, why not? Blake Snell, as we talked about yesterday, signing with the Dodgers, and there's been a lot of drama on the internet because there's some deferred money in this contract, and baseball fans who have more passion than reading comprehension maybe are a little bit upset because they get PTSD when they hear the words deferred money because Shohei Ohtani deferred so much money. And I just want to talk, I mentioned this on social media, so you might have seen it. I want to talk about an alternate reality. About a year ago, John Heyman talked to two experts. He didn't name who they were, got their predictions on what Shohei Ohtani's contract would be. One said 11 years, $535 million. That's $48.6 million per year. The other one said 10 years, $400 million. That is $40 million per year. And so I wrote out an alternate reality. What if Ohtani's contract had been reported like this? Shohei Ohtani agreed to a 10-year, $460 million contract with the Dodgers. In a rare quirk made possible by Ohtani's endorsement income, the superstar will actually defer $44 million per year to be paid in the 10 years after the contract ends. But while the Dodgers will pay Ohtani only $2 million per year while he's playing, the full $46 million will count towards the competitive balance tax. By the time the contract's fully paid in 2043, the Dodgers will have paid, Ohtani will have received $700 million from the Dodgers. If this had been reported as a 10-year, $460 million contract, which is what it is, with a bunch of it deferred with interest, which is what it is, then people wouldn't be panicking because the Dodgers are paying $46 million, or Ohtani's luxury tax hit is $46 million, the highest in baseball. No other player in baseball has a luxury tax number as high. Second highest is Zach Wheeler, like $42 million. And so Dodgers are paying that, or taking that luxury tax hit on the Ohtani contract, the actual value of the contract. Nobody expected Shohei Ohtani to get a $700 million contract. It wasn't reasonable. The only reason it's $700 million is because of the deferred money. It's a 10-year, $460 million contract, which is what people expected him to get. That was perfectly in line with what he got. And so people, because it got reported as a $700 million contract, got reported that Ohtani's making $70 million a year, but he's deferring $68 million. No, he's making $46 million a year, deferring $44 million. Still a lot of deferred money for sure, but it doesn't affect the collective bar or the competitive balance tax at all. The Dodgers are paying the full $46 million that it is worth in real-time money. This Blake Snell contract, the deferred money it's just right in line with what Rafael Devers and Max Scherzer and Ken Griffey Jr. and, guys over the last several decades have been doing deferred money contracts. It's just people panicking. It's crazy. And people calling for Dodgers are finding loopholes in the CBA. This isn't a loophole. There's a whole section about deferred money. This is something that both the players and the owners both wanted in the CBA. That's why it's there. That's why anybody can do this. Anybody can do this, by the way. Anybody. A lot of teams do. The Dodgers happen to have done it with Ohtani in a way that hadn't been done before. That was Ohtani's idea, and very few players will ever be in the position to actually defer 96% of their salary because very few players will have the endorsement potential that Shohei Ohtani has. But in the end, this is just, we knew all along the Dodgers were probably going to sign one of those big three starting pitching free agents. The fact that it's Blake Snell, the fact that he signed before Corbin Burnes and Max Fried doesn't change the fact Dodgers were always going to sign one of those guys. This doesn't mean anything about the state of Major League Baseball or the competitive nature or parity or anything. It's free agency. And the Dodgers said, we need a starting pitcher. So they went and signed the one they liked the most. That's all it is. It's a baseball team building a baseball team. So that's my thoughts on the Blake Snell meltdown on social media. I appreciate those of you who do have, reading comprehension to go with your passion. I think that's a valuable thing in a baseball fan. With that said, I am going to now turn this over to, we'll do an ad break. And then next thing you see will be Vince and me talking to World Series champion Ben Casparius. I will hang out in the chat till the end. So we'll talk to you soon. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And again, $5, you get that bet right, and you get $150 in bonus bets. So you might want to go with the safe bet, like, for example, on Thanksgiving Day, the Lions and the Bears. Lions are minus 500 money line odds to beat the Bears. Sounds pretty safe. Put $5 on the Lions, and if they win, you'll get $150 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We are here with World Series champion Ben Casparius. Hey, Ben, I am World Series champion Jeff Snider. That is World Series champion Vince Samperio. Daniel Hudson said we're all World Series champions. We are leaning into that, but it's pretty cool to have one of the actual World Series champions here with us. So thank you for taking some time to talk to us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys.
Absolutely. So you pitched 3 games in the regular season this year. You pitched 4 games in the postseason. You have more postseason appearances. You have more champagne parties than regular season appearances. Is that when you went to spring training in February? Is this kind of how you pictured this season was going to go?
Not quite. No, I had a feeling, I'd get an opportunity at some point this year if I, stayed on my process and kept the ball rolling. But no, I didn't think it was going to look like this, especially, playing in the World Series, making the postseason roster. And it's been kind of, anything anybody could ask for.
Yeah, it's been obviously a wild ride. You got the win in the clinching game of the NLCS. You got to start a game in the World Series. I saw growing up, you were a Red Sox fan. So Red Sox fan growing, you wouldn't have played the Yankees in the World Series if you thought you might be on the Red Sox. But pitching against them in the World Series, what was that experience like, especially being in New York?
Yeah. First off, just to, have the trust from the coaching staff and personnel in our front office to give me that opportunity and trust me to take the ball in that game is a big deal for me. And it was something that, I took pride in. I felt like, I can go out there, just do my thing. I don't have much to lose in this situation. And again, like, it's something that you dream of as a kid, especially in Yankee Stadium. And, being from Connecticut, I had all my family there. I had all my friends there. So it was a special day for sure.
Yeah. I wonder, like, because obviously you grew up a baseball fan, and now being a professional baseball player, there's still that fandom there a little bit. So I guess, Vince and I were talking the other day on our episode about how many times we've gone back and watched Freddie's grand slam or the clinching moment, Buehler, his defiant pose after winning the World Series. As a member of the team, how many times have you watched Freddie's grand slam?
A lot.
Yeah.
At least every single day. I mean, I honestly don't even have to try to go find it. It's just all over my social media feed. And that was like one of the most incredible moments I've ever seen on a baseball field. I remember like we're down in the bullpen and I got chills immediately. I almost got like emotional too. It was just the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Especially the injuries that he was dealing with, to be able to do what he did was just awesome. So yeah, every day for sure.
And you guys were more aware of those injuries, obviously, than any of us. Like did you know like the full extent of what Freddie was going through?
I didn't know the full extent. I knew that there was multiple different things that were going on, but I didn't know honestly like specifics of anything other than I knew his ankle was pretty beat up.
Sitting there in the bullpen, you talk about, you were part of the dogs as they became coined there. And I talked to a few guys, before during media day and kind of what that mentality was, especially for someone like you who, has been a starter most of the time so far professionally, but, you have had some relief appearances. But guys that could go from the first inning to the ninth inning, where did you fit into that? And was it talked about, or did you guys just all kind of say, hey, you know what, we're here for what we want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of the momentum shift in the bullpen, and they were great the whole year. I mean, they held the, we had everybody's backs the whole year. But I think going into the playoff series, like the NLDS, with having 3 starting pitchers for the most part, I think kind of lit a fire under everybody. And, everybody needed to step up. Roles needed to be changed. You had to be, pitch in uncomfortable spots where you might not be used to doing that. I think everybody did a really good job, just being flexible and doing whatever it took to, advance and keep winning.
I don't know if you know this, minor league players don't make a lot of money. And you spent most of the season in the minors. And as we're recording this on Tuesday, we just found out this morning, we got the numbers on the playoff shares. And, I did some number crunching, how much time you spent on the big league roster. Seems like, without getting into specific details, your playoff share is going to be like 8 or 10 times what you made during the regular season. This is like life-changing money for you. Are you thinking about that? Like as you're going through the postseason, like every time you advance right, you're like, I know how I'm eating this winter.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody thinks about it, but I don't, that doesn't even compare to winning a World Series. Honestly, like I don't care if I got $1 million or nothing. Like I have a ring with a great group of guys. I think that's the most important thing, but I'm not going to complain too much about the playoff share either.
The money and the ring is pretty nice, huh?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. We going back to, spring training and you said you knew that you might have a chance to contribute. But how did that progress to that point? Because, if someone just went and looked at straight numbers from your minor league career, they might say, oh, I don't know if he has a chance to make it. But were the Dodgers talking to you the whole time and kind of saying like, hey, this is what we like, continue to work on this? Were you aware that you had the chance because of the Dodgers, or was that just self-confidence?
No, I was aware I had the chance, but I think that was a big reason why I went to the fall league the previous year. I had thrown 110 innings or so, and to get sent to the fall league and after throwing 110 innings in your second year of Pro Bowl, I think there's a very specific reason for that. And I think that was probably, top 2 or 3 things for my career up to that point was just, pitch late into November. I think my last outing of the year in the fall league was November 7th, which was almost a week after we finished up too. So like I had experience pitching that late into the year. And just be able to refine everything. You're pitching against really good prospects. I think if I had to compare in a fall league lineup, it's probably a pretty good AAA lineup. So at that point, it's, nickel and diming whatever the talent is. But that was really a really big opportunity for me to just see how my body reacted to pitching that late into the year, and then obviously having a really abbreviated offseason.
How much feedback do you get from the Dodgers during that whole process, as far as, because like Vince said, you look at your stats and you had big strikeout stuff throughout the minor leagues, which is kind of one of the indicators that fans would look and say, oh, this guy definitely has potential to be something. But is there specific things like when the Dodgers sent you the fall league, here's the areas that you need to get better at in order to be a factor for us down the road?
For sure. I think obviously like refining my commands. That's always been something that like I'm continuously working on. Mixing in the curveball. So I think I started throwing the curveball the very end of last year in AA. And to kind of be able to take that into some game action and however many outings I had in the fall league to just get more familiar and comfortable with that. And honestly too, just, getting used to the big league ball, the minor league ball we use in low A through AA, and then the big league ball in AAA and above, obviously. So I think just it was a good experience to get used to everything in that regard. And then, it was kind of all hands on deck in spring training, and things went really well. And, I kind of took off as the beginning of the season started.
About the curveball and kind of looking at just this season in the majors, the curveball usage did up a little bit in the postseason. Was that something that you wanted to do? Was that something part of the plan, or just a matter of that was what that specific situation needed?
I think it was just a pitch where I could steal a strike. I think I kind of in the beginning, I kind of underestimated how much I was actually throwing it in the strike zone. Like I felt like I had a hard time landing it, but I think it was probably around 40%, which is like very above average, I think, for that pitch. So that's something where you're just, you're protecting your fastball with that pitch. It's got the same kind of spin orientation. And then obviously it's like, 10 to 15 miles per hour off the fastball. So I think it's just another lane of which like I'm able to tunnel. And I just needed to give myself a little bit more credit for how much I was actually throwing it in the strike zone and, getting swings on it too.
Going back to some World Series talk, that it's a fun thing to talk about. I assume you were down in the bullpen for game 5 against the Yankees.
Yep.
When Walker Buehler came down there, we kind of heard about this on Mookie's podcast. You got some airtime. The final cut, you didn't get to say any words in the final cut. I assume you did in the raw footage, but
yeah, I did.
So we're here to give you that voice. I'm sure we get roughly the same views as Mookie's podcast, but what was your thought process when Buehler comes down there? When did you realize he might actually pitch in this game?
Right when he got down there. I didn't think there was any way that if he comes down to the bullpen, he wasn't going into the game, especially with where we were. I had thrown 43 pitches the day before in a start where it's kind of, I'm treating it as like a start. So I'm throwing a lot more than that, obviously. Knack wasn't available, and we were thin, and Walk came down and he was like, you know what, like I'm here for a reason. Let's do it. And I don't think I've ever been more confident in somebody going out for a 9th inning to close out a game. Like when he went on the mound, I was like, they have no chance.
Yeah. That's did you guys start doing that mental math when Flaherty gets pulled early and you're like,
yeah,
we're already shorthanded today. How are we going to get through this game?
100%. And it was kind of all hands on deck. And it was just one of the most unique and interesting games I've ever been a part of in any level.
Does all hands on deck, were you thinking I might even have to pitch today after throwing 43 pitches, or was that never on the table?
No, it turned into being on the table, and it was pretty funny because I was pretty like static at the time, and it happened really quickly. And fortunately Walker was able to go, and we had a couple other options also, but yeah, no, it turned into like, hey, we need you to kind of start getting ready in case things like really, go south.
That's interesting, and something I thought about. Like, I didn't remember in the moment because I was out there in New York, but I didn't remember in the moment how many pitches you had thrown. So I'm like, Casparius is a guy who's thrown he threw 3 of the 6 games in the other series. Like maybe he could throw, but and ultimately did need that. When it comes to pitching, as a rookie with 3 major league games experience before getting into the postseason, Do you think it's something about your personal mentality that helped you perform well? Or do you think it's, maybe a little bit not knowing any better, a little bit, being naive, or, because there's guys that have done well as rookies and there's guys that have not done well. And I guess it kind of goes through all the way to veterans. Some guys do well and some guys don't. But what was that mentality going out there?
I think for me, it was just treating every day the same. It's if you look at, if you look at Aaron Judge in the eye, when he's stepping into the box, like, you're in trouble. If you have any emotion towards who's in the box, I think you're not giving yourself the best chance to do well or to compete. And I think for me, if I focus on just executing good pitches, once in a while you're going to get hit around, but at the end of the day, the more you're in the zone, the more you're executing, you're going to get people out. That's just how it is. And it's kind of just my mentality going, outing to outing, whether it's a start, whether it's a long relief role, whether I'm throwing in the ninth inning, it's pretty much all the same.
Talking about those roles, you were, mostly, not exclusively, but mostly a starter in the minor leagues. But then, like you said, in the fall league last year, you did come out of the bullpen a few times. And then in the big leagues this year, it was exclusively out of the bullpen. Was that something that how much communication was there between the team and you saying, we're going to have you pitch out of the bullpen because if we need you in October, that's most likely going to be your role? Or was that just kind of understood by you by the way that you were being used?
Yeah. So I all of my relief outings in the minor leagues were piggyback roles. So I knew I was pitching that day. It was predetermined. I was following the starter. So I don't really consider that a relief role at all. So it wasn't like I was going into the game like, hey, you might pitch, hey, you might not. It was like, hey, you're following the starter today. That was the same for the fall league. So my first real true relief outing it was Arizona. It was the 8th inning of my debut. That was the first time where I went into a game not knowing if I'd pitch or not, and then my name got called. So that was a very big shift in mentality, I would say, just being like obviously I'm doing my work every day and we're either lifting or we're getting treatment in this snap, but you have to be ready to go every day. And that's something that I had to get used to really quickly.
Are there specific guys in the bullpen who, you kind of look at some of the veterans who to kind of get a feel for how you should be preparing for that?
Yeah, I would pick guys' brains. I think, it's hard to single anybody out because everybody down there is awesome. I think everybody's different too. Everybody has a different routine. Everybody does more or less throwing. It's really just, whatever works for you is what needs to be done. I think they do a really good job of letting guys be who they are. But no, I just think figuring out hey, how much are you throwing at, if our game's at 7 p.m., how much are we throwing at 3 o'clock? Or how hard are you throwing off the mound in pregame? And how many pitches does that look like? Are you lifting the day that you think that you're going to be hot? There's just a million different things that kind of go into the routine in the process. So I had to kind of try and figure that out pretty quickly. And I thought that it'll get better whether I stay a starter or if I stay in the bullpen. But I think I had a lot of help from those guys and they kind of knew the position I was in and that it was really new for me.
Yeah. So, coming through the Dodgers organization, we've talked to younger guys in the past and, kind of always saying they from what they've heard, or if they've been in multiple organizations that, they know why the Dodgers have success. Is there something that you can kind of point to that reiterates that why the Dodgers are so successful in, one, having a winning team in the majors, but also developing guys through the minors?
Yeah, I think it's the culture in general, right? So if you have a bunch of guys who work really hard, this is obviously our job. This is our livelihood. So guys working really hard is going to create everybody to start working hard. And when that happens, guys are, they're going to be big leaguers. And then at that point, you have to work really hard to become a big leaguer. And especially with our organization, because of just the culture and what guys are able to do. And then obviously it comes down to player development and it just clicks for a lot of guys. And I think that's, at the end of the day, it's our personnel, it's our staff from top to bottom.
We are continuing here with World Series champion Ben Casparius. Vince mentioned earlier, Ben, you were a Red Sox fan growing up. you were drafted in 2021, which means you were probably still a Red Sox fan when the Red Sox beat the Dodgers in the 2018 World Series, which we don't need to talk too much about that, other than to say, what's it like being teammates with Mookie Betts? I assume he was a player you had some fondness for as a teenager, huh?
Yeah, Mookie's unbelievable. He's a better person than he is player, and that's it's hard to do with how good he is. But I feel like he really took me under his wing too. He treated me like anybody else. And we talked a lot about his time in Boston too. I told him, I was like, hey man, like you're like my hero, and I hit for a really long time too. I only transitioned over to pitching full time my senior year or my redshirt junior year of college. So I was a hitter for my whole life. And to be in the same clubhouse with him is really special, and watch him go through his day and how regimented he is. There's no deviation with his batting practice, anything. He's taking ground balls at shortstop for honestly no reason. He wasn't going to play there the rest of the season, but he's still out there doing it. He's still working on the craft. So it was an unbelievable experience.
Thinking about that, born in '99, so you got the full Red Sox. You got all the World Series titles from once you're 5-6 years old. Now first year in the big leagues, you get the World Series title, so you might just have a little bit of World Series luck in you. But
maybe.
But wanting to talk about the East Coast, West Coast thing, and obviously growing up Red Sox fan and being close to New York, I'm sure you went to games out there, and East Coast fans probably have a little bit different reputation, but being able to see Dodger Stadium, being able to see LA throughout the whole process, throughout clinching the division, winning every round, and then going through the parade, was it anything like you maybe would have expected, or did it exceed your expectations?
It definitely exceeded expectations. The parade was insane. Like it was truly one of the most special experiences I've ever been a part of. It was, I can't remember. I think it was like 3 million plus. I heard a lot of different numbers, but it was just like an unfathomable amount of people. And again, like they haven't had a parade since 1988, so it's been a long time. And I heard that it lasted, a little bit longer than that one day, and just like how happy everybody was and the parties and this and that. But no, it was so cool. The atmosphere was amazing. And the atmosphere was pretty unbelievable in New York too, honestly, both places. So just being able to see, 3 big market teams and, huge high stakes games like that, it's like invaluable for, at least for me and for my experience and like my career going forward, just being able to, pitch in those games, be a part of those games, and kind of just see what it takes to win in the postseason.
You mentioned transitioning to being a full-time pitcher late in your college career. Was that out of necessity? Was it just was it an epiphany somebody had? Well, this dude's got a great arm. Why don't we just get him on the mound more? Or how did that process go?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think part of it was being back in Connecticut with the relationships I had with the scouts at the start of high school or whatever. I think just the majority of teams, whether it was 100% or 90% of the teams, saw me as a pitcher over a hitter. And that's where I kind of, I start having conversations with my coaches, and it's, hey, we need to, shift the focus towards this. And, kind of flip-flop what I actually was doing, whether it was, I think 90% hitting and 10% pitching. It became, all the throwing I'm doing is off the mound, and then I'm taking BP, or I'm taking ground balls, but not throwing. So the whole mentality shifted. And then obviously the COVID season hit. We play 12 games or whatever it is. And I had from March until July really to just completely shift my focus in training, kind of just build some more arm strength, work on my arsenal and everything like that. And that was a really big period of time for me to just be able to, kind of shift my focus and figure out like, how am I going to do this thing going into my, my junior year.
Now, obviously talking about two-way players, there's one on the Dodgers. You haven't get to see him up close do the pitching side of things, but for you coming up and now, doing it 1 year in college or a year and a half, however long it was, and then, seeing Ohtani and knowing what he's done and knowing what he plans to do, how does that feel like to know, like, how hard it is to be a two-way player, and this guy's doing it in the big leagues?
Yeah, to me, he's, there's nobody like him. It's hard to put into words, especially just the wear and tear. Like, the guy throws 100 pitches and then he has to hit the next day or whatever it is, and however the schedule is built out to like help him be able to get through it. I mean, if I start a game and I throw 100 pitches, I feel like I got hit by a train the next day, to be honest with you guys. So for me to, it's pretty unfathomable to try to pick up a bat and then obviously do what he did offensively is just, it's incredible. So, I mean, hats off to him. He works, as hard as anybody I've ever seen. And again, if there's only a few people that I've ever done it, and it's telling why he's one of them, and he's obviously the best to ever do it.
Yeah, he's I don't know if anybody's done it as long as he has. It is pretty remarkable. That will do it for us for today. Thank you again to Ben Casparius. This was the first half of our conversation. We'll be back tomorrow with the second half of that conversation. A lot of fun talking with him. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Thanks for being an everyday. If you're not, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Also, remember, go beyond the podcast to become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Also, for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, aka Sully. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We will talk to you tomorrow.